My wife left me for someone else when I got sick, then tried to come back when she found out I recovered and got rich. I'm 47, and lately I've been going through an emotional crisis. My wife turned away from me and started dating another man when she learned I had an incurable illness. It all started about a year ago. I collapsed at the office and was taken away by an ambulance. After a series of exhausting medical tests, I was diagnosed with a serious condition. I was diagnosed with a liver infection, and if left untreated, I could die. At that time, my wife was in another city at a friend's wedding. I didn't tell her over the phone because I didn't want to scare her. When she returned and saw me pale and sick, I had to tell her everything. She was shocked, but I didn't feel the warmth I expected from her after such news. I wouldn't say she was cold, but more disappointed than upset or scared, as if I were to blame for my own illness. Anyway, I focused on recovery and stayed positive. It became increasingly difficult to balance work and health concerns. Doctors recommended drastic changes to my diet and lifestyle. With the new routine, it was hard to work effectively, but I tried my best. Meanwhile, I noticed my wife distancing herself from me. When I wanted intimacy, she'd say I needed rest or complain about being tired. This worried me, so I decided to talk to her. She said she was just stressed about my illness, but I found that hard to believe. When someone is worried, they don't push their partner away, but that's exactly what she was doing. To distract myself from the stress, I buried myself in work. I was so busy, I started skipping meals and sometimes forgot my medication. Of course, this affected my health, and I ended up seriously ill and hospitalized again. This time, my wife saw what I was going through. She took care of me. I was hospitalized for a week this time, and the doctor bluntly said if I didn't take my health seriously, things would spiral out of control. I was advised to take a leave of absence because work was worsening my condition. But taking leave was nearly impossible. You see, I don't work for a regular corporation. The company I work for is owned by a close friend who founded it in college. When he asked me to join him, I wasn't sure of his success, so I took a regular job. However, after 5 to 6 years, his company started generating good income, and he offered me a high-level position with a good salary. I agreed, and since then have treated the company as my own, taking personal responsibility for its growth. I manage a crucial business division. I rested briefly and returned to work. One day, while discussing my test results with the doctor on the phone, the company founder accidentally overheard. He was furious that I'd hidden my illness and kept overworking for the company. He insisted I take leave and rest until fully recovered. Then I explained my situation, that I might never return to work, so I wanted to work as many months as possible this year to secure my family's future. I hadn't discussed this with anyone, not even my wife, but I had a bad feeling about my health. I felt it was deteriorating, and in that situation, I just wanted to earn as much money as possible so my wife could maintain her lifestyle. I opened up to my friend, and he assured me that if anything happened to me, God forbid he'd take care of my family's finances. This was a huge relief, but I didn't want to burden him. However, he insisted I take a 6-month leave with full pay, and if I wanted, I could occasionally work from home. I returned home and told my wife I wouldn't be going to work starting the next day. Before I could fully explain, she immediately asked if I'd been fired. I looked at her sarcastically and said, yes, due to declining health. I decided to lighten the mood with this joke. Her first reaction was, "Are you dying?" This broke my heart though. Could she be so heartless? But I decided to play along and said, yes. She asked, "How long do you have left?" I replied that I didn't know, but the doctor said maybe 6 to 7 months or less. I thought she'd cry or show some emotion. I might have even laughed at her reaction, but she was cold. She just said, "How will I manage financially? You don't have enough savings to support me. I told you long ago to leave your friend's company and find a job abroad with higher pay. Then we'd have had enough money and I could live normally." The point is, she didn't care that I was dying. She cared that I was dying poor and leaving her nothing. I wanted to reassure her and tell her about my company shares that would provide a good life if something happened to me, but I held back. I was curious what she'd do next. I don't think I mentioned that I received a significant stake in the company when we hit our first major milestone. Today it's worth about $1.1 million, and as the company grows, it will increase further, I'm sure. From that moment, my marriage was essentially dead. All our conversations became purely formal. My wife didn't even ask about my health. I watched her leave in the morning, return late at night, mostly eating out. Though she doesn't have a full-time job, she works as a nail technician at a salon only during peak season. All this troubled me, but I focused on my health. Then last month, my wife approached me and asked when we'd get divorced. My world crumbled before my eyes. Divorce was the last thing I wanted to face in this state. I was speechless. She said it was no surprise. She needed to move on, and the sooner she distanced herself from me, the better. I asked sarcastically if she'd already found my replacement, and she nodded and said, yes. It was a man she'd known for a while, but now saw as a potential partner, and started dating. I can't even describe how I felt at that moment. Something inside me snapped. I realized my marriage was a sham. I discussed it with my friend, and he advised me to remove my wife from my list of beneficiaries. And let's stop calling her my wife. She's just Jay. I removed her from all documents, including the company shares. Jay knows nothing about my stake because I wanted to surprise her at retirement. By then, its value would have multiplied, thankfully. I never told her earlier. She'd have kept pretending and playing her role for money. Update 1. Hi everyone, and thanks for the well wishes. I'm glad I lied to Jay about my terminal illness and saw her true colors. Otherwise, my whole life would have been a lie. We have no children. My parents died years ago. I have a brother, but we're not close, so everything would have automatically gone to her. Despite declining health, I worked tirelessly last year to leave her enough money, and in return, she treated me like this. At first, I tried ignoring her and focusing on my health. I enrolled in fitness classes as the doctor advised, strictly followed the diet, ran, did everything to recover, but progress was slower than it should have been. I realized all the good I was doing for myself was negated by my wife's presence. I couldn't watch her get ready for dates. She'd come home drunk, makeup smeared, and we barely spoke. Sometimes she'd ask when we'd finally divorce or make snide remarks like, "So, did the diet buy you a few extra days?" Obviously sarcastic and cruel comments. I pretended not to care, but it hurt. All this hindered my recovery, maybe even worsened it. Before this, I had a boring life work and family, meaning Jay. Now both were gone, and I had absolutely nothing to do. My friend offered me a small apartment on the top floor of our office building, where we used to unwind after work. It has one bedroom and a small living room. I agreed because home was suffocating me. There, at least I could distract myself, walk around the office, see colleagues, and stay busy. Just 1 week in the new place helped. When I was about to move, Jay asked if I was leaving for good. I said, until the divorce is final, and she stopped calling after that. Only when divorce papers arrived did she leave a voicemail thanking me for letting her go without a fight. The divorce went smoothly because I had nothing to fight for, though I did, but she didn't know it. The house we lived in was on a 10-year lease. 8.5 years had passed, 1.5 remained. I agreed to add her to the lease so she could live there rent-free for that time. She knew I had no savings, and I told her I'd use them to live out my remaining days. So everything was settled. Now I'm focusing on eating right and exercising. I've also started joining important work meetings from my apartment to keep busy. My latest checkup showed positive progress in my health, and I couldn't be happier. Before, I felt I wouldn't live long despite treatment, but now I feel much better and look to the future optimistically. I'll update if anything changes. Update 2. Hi everyone, thanks for checking in. As I wrote last update, my divorce was finalized, and I let my ex-wife live in the house until the lease ended. After the divorce, I lived in the office apartment since I'd moved out. I took only essentials. The rest went to storage. When I went to collect my things, Jay's new boyfriend was already living there. He awkwardly approached me and said he was sorry to hear about my terminal illness. I just smiled. He asked how long I had left. I said I didn't know, maybe a few months. I was completely calm, seeing my ex's boyfriend. Maybe I'd finally moved on. Or maybe I was glad to be rid of my freeloader wife. Health update. I'm much better than before. I feel healthier than ever. I'm back involved with work, which helps. Living in the office building helped immensely. I could work whenever I wanted. Now that my health is stable, I plan to sell some company shares to rebuild my life. I'm house hunting. I've lived in the office over 5 months. Though my friend says I can stay as long as I want, I don't want to abuse his kindness. Amid all this, I got a text from an unknown number. A woman introduced herself as Jay's boyfriend's wife and asked to meet. I agreed. When we met, she asked about my health. Her expression showed surprise. She said I didn't look terminally ill at all. I smiled and asked what else she knew about me and why she wanted to meet. She said her husband had been with Jay for over 2 years, but they hid it well. When my illness became known and my wife got the house, he confessed to his wife, left her, and moved into my house. I was puzzled. Jay knew the house was rented, not owned. Plus, she only pretended to find a new man because of my illness. She'd actually been cheating long before. This woman was crushed because Jay had seduced her husband 2 years ago when he inherited money from his father. Jay's boyfriend is much older, probably near 60 with grown children. His wife was willing to forgive him if Jay backed off, so she sought my help. I asked if she was sure, since this man cheated for 2 years. She said she was sure she didn't want to break up the family and couldn't imagine being alone in old age. I didn't judge. It's her choice. They're not officially divorced yet. Then I told her the truth about my health, and she was delighted. She congratulated me on recovering and asked about my plans. I said I was looking for a new place, then explained that the house Jay and her lover lived in wasn't mine, just rented with 18 months left. When she heard this, her eyes lit up. I immediately knew what she'd do. She thanked me and left. The next morning, my phone exploded with calls and texts from Jay. Her voicemails were screams. Why did you lie about your health? Why didn't you say you recovered? Why hide that you own company shares? Her panic was hilariously desperate. Then she came to my office. I saw her through the glass meeting room, but told the secretary to make her wait 2 hours. I know it sounds mean, but I enjoyed watching her squirm. The tables had turned. Months ago, I lived in that same state of anxiety and despair, watching her leave for dates and come home drunk. When she was finally led into my office, she burst in screaming everything from her voicemails. I listened, but secretly relished her anger. It didn't come from love or pain, just desperation. I smirked and asked how long she'd cheated. She stayed silent. Then she lied, saying it only started after I got sick. I gave her a look that said I knew the truth. I made her admit she'd been with her lover for 2 years and asked if she'd only been with me for money. She confessed they were just friends at first, nothing serious. She only slept with him after learning about my terminal diagnosis. I said, "Great, your husband's dying, so you sleep with someone else." She kept lying. I pressed until she told the truth. Finally, she broke down crying and begged me to take her back. She said I had no significant savings, and when she learned her lover inherited $1 million from his father, she switched to him. But he wouldn't leave his wife unless Jay proved she wasn't a gold digger, so she offered him the house if he'd leave his wife and marry her. She planned to trick him, but his wife found me just in time and exposed everything. I smiled and told her to leave. She suggested dinner. I refused and repeated, "Leave." Then she said, "Since everything's settled, let's start over. I have no issues with you now." She tried to guilt me but forgot she's not my wife anymore, and I'm not dancing to her tune. I told her to leave, or I'd call security. Honestly, nothing's more satisfying than seeing a cheater's humiliated face. I'll update when my new life is fully settled. Update 3. Hey guys, I'm thrilled to write this. I'm fully divorced now. Since my diagnosis, I've lost nearly 11 kilograms, 24 pounds. This is largely due to lifestyle changes. I was so busy earning money for my family, well, ex-wife, that I neglected my health. And for what? She abandoned me the moment she thought I was dying. Last time, I wrote that Jay came to my office begging for a chance. After our meeting, her lover's wife went straight to him and exposed Jay as a gold digger who was only after his inheritance. Until then, he defended Jay because she'd let him move into the house. But when he learned it was only rented and she'd soon leech off him completely, he felt betrayed. Plus, it turned out Jay had lied about many things to lure him in. She truly was after his late father's money, but his wife stood her ground. She wouldn't let that money go to Jay. It was meant for her children. Ultimately, The wife got rid of Jay for good. I don't know how things are with the lover and his wife now. She used to update me, but we're not in touch anymore. I asked how she could forgive cheating, but she didn't want to discuss personal matters, so I dropped it. As for my ex-wife, she tried everything to reconcile. Calls, letters, floods of messages. When it got annoying, I blocked her everywhere. Then, learning I was moving into my own place, Jay started showing up at my office and sending gifts. Thing is, she's jobless, and the house lease ends in months. A neighbor told me Jay's been renting out a room to some guy for a year. Apparently, that's how she survives. What else she does, I don't know. Maybe she found another way to support herself, but I don't care anymore. Now I realize everything happens for a reason and always works out for the best. My health is fine. I bought a place, a small 2-bedroom penthouse. It's cozy and decorated how I like. I couldn't be happier. Many advised me to start dating again, but I haven't yet. Some younger colleagues recommended social media for people 45 plus starting new lives. I even downloaded an app, but don't feel ready for modern dating. I've also been warned these sites are full of scammers, so I'm wary I don't want another mess. If you have advice, I'd love to hear it. Thanks for all the support and kindness.